wouldn't consider it or not consider it. I don't know anything about it. So, but I will speak to the DOJ.
Why would she be a candidate for clemency, sir?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to speak to the DOJ. I'll look at it. I have a lot of people who have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
That the government took a big swing at him, and basically tried to take his entire fortune and net worth and the rest of his life.
So it doesn't mean that the government can tell him what job to do.
Diddy's worst nightmare just came true. Michael Francesi, a former capo in the Colombo crime family who spent years behind bars, has revealed that Diddy was attacked with a shiv and almost killed. The biggest danger for Diddy, however, is still on the way.
Are you concerned that Sean Diddy Combs could be assaulted, violently assaulted? Is that a thing? Because based on what was said in court, it feels like a thing.
Yeah, it clearly is a thing. I mean, they're already, and he did not want to make a big deal of it. They already tried to shank him once at the MDC, and that was thwarted. And it happens in prison. I mean, you and I could tick off how many times we are aware of somebody getting seriously injured or in prison. And so they're going to have to keep him somewhere that they can keep an eye on him. It would have obviously been better if he had gotten less time and had been at a camp, but he's going to be in a facility where somebody's going to have to, from the BOP, and I think they're well equipped to do it if they can, to keep an eye on him because he is a target.
Diddy's lawyers are now preparing for the worst after Diddy's closest friend, Charlucci Finney, exposed that Diddy's life is in danger. An inmate armed with a shiv snuck into Diddy's cell and tried to murder him during the middle of the night. This attack marks the second time someone has tried to come after Diddy, and keep in mind this isn't even the worst problem Diddy has had to face.
Diddy was threatened in prison by an inmate. It's now being reported that an inmate that is housed with Diddy in the MDC has held a shiv to his neck. And this isn't the first time that we are hearing Diddy say that he was threatened by an inmate with a shiv, so I'm not even sure if I believe it. But now we're hearing of the second attack that Diddy is facing in the MDC from his best friend Charlucci. A lot of people will remember him from the Diddy trial where he was caught outside a lot of the times wearing a Free Puff t-shirt. He was always there to support Diddy. Now Diddy's best friend is alleging that an inmate snuck into his room while he was sleeping and held a shiv to his neck. He then claimed that Diddy woke up, but he doesn't know if Diddy fought off this inmate or if the guard stepped in. Diddy's friend Charlucci is claiming that he believes that this inmate was just trying to intimidate Diddy because he said if he wanted to, he could have harmed him. And this is not the first time that we are hearing that Diddy was allegedly attacked by inmates. Diddy had submitted a letter to the judge before his sentencing hearing where he was claiming that he was attacked by an inmate with a shiv for wanting to sit in the chair that Diddy was sitting in. And in this document, Diddy was basically saying this is one way that you could tell that he is a changed man since he spent time in the MDC, because he said usually he would have fought back against this inmate with violence. He said he didn't, and he de-escalated the situation.
Diddy is currently waiting to be transferred to a federal prison at the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York. Diddy is a target, and the inmates being held with Diddy right now know that if they get rid of Diddy, they'll be rewarded. Diddy might think that his money can save him, but when someone is determined, nothing can stop them.
Diddy had something very scary happen to him. One of his close friends is speaking out and saying that while he was sleeping at the MDC Brooklyn jail, somebody came and put a knife, pressed it to his throat. Now, as I keep digging into the story, they're saying yes, a correctional officer or a police officer was the one who came and basically helped him out and quote unquote saved him. Yes. And so, obviously Diddy's lawyers are trying to use this as a way to just get him even moved to a different location. But right now, everything is kind of staying as is.
Yeah, his safety being an issue when he's supposed to be, I think in some sort of protected environment. Remember MDC, isn't that where the Epstein situation happened?
During Diddy's sentencing, his lawyers revealed that this was not the first time that Diddy had been targeted and last time someone actually tried to shank him. Diddy's lawyer, Mark Garagos, says that it's not just physical assault that Diddy has to worry about, but assault too. The nature of Diddy's charges and the evidence that was presented against him put him in danger. Criminals that violate women don't last long in prison.
Yeah.
Is he safe though? And you say something about him getting stabbed?
I was going to say, Diddy's team is saying no, he's not going to be safe, because in court we found out that there was an attempt on Diddy's life, that there was a man that attempted to shank him, but they stopped it, the correctional officers. And they say Diddy didn't even want people to know that he didn't want to make it a big deal. But of course they're having that conversation about will he be safe because of who he is and how high profile this case is.
Right.
They're also having a conversation. Mark Geragos is a high profile attorney, a friend of Diddy's, but also the dad of Teeny Geragos, who led Diddy's defense about Diddy potentially being in court. And we can and just attacks on his life, because they say that people look at him as like a trophy or a prize, and to do something to him.
Well, what if other inmates hear all of the stuff that we've been hearing in the news all of these weeks, and they scared of Diddy?
That's not how they presented it. I don't.
That's crazy to say Diddy's a trophy. Like, he's looked at as a trophy in jail is crazy. Isn't that crazy?
But even more, Charlamagne talking about the inmates gonna be scared.
Yo, and the lawyers, when they were speaking on Diddy being in prison and the circumstances him being in prison, I didn't never hear about this, and nobody ever said anything about this. And I want to know if it's in the prison records. They said one of the guards stopped a dude from shanking Diddy. Now, I'm like, if he was doing all this positive shit in jail, and they was talking about he was, all the inmates loved him, and they was employing him and doing standing ovation, I wonder what inmate was trying to shank him. Was that one of the Tupac? Was that one of the Tupac fans, or that was one of Biggie fans? Because they said that the guard, they said that in court, one of the lawyers, one of the guards stopped one of the individuals that was trying to shank him, bro. And that was crazy. Nobody, I never, that didn't leak. Everything leaks from prison, but that didn't leak. Nobody wrote home and said, yo, dudes is in here trying to stab Diddy up. But the lawyers mentioned that today. I want to see if they're going to investigate that right there. You know what I'm saying? And base that, or he probably used that, base that on trying to help Diddy getting into one of those camps or one of those programs that, you know, he ain't got to worry about nothing.
Shockingly, former Mafia members Michael Francesi and Sammy the Bull Gravano said if the Mafia had known about Sean Diddy Combs' alleged activities for which he is being tried, they would have gotten rid of him already. The Mafia isn't going to let someone get away with beating women, and there's a good chance this is why Diddy keeps being targeted.
I mean, what this guy did is disgusting. I don't think there's a person alive, a man or a woman, especially women, who are not going to hate this guy. Whatever he did was completely disgusting. It's beyond criminal. I don't even know what it is. I look at it like he disgraced everybody. He disgraced the black race by being a black man. I know a lot of black people, and they hate him for it because it painted a picture towards all of them. I think it's being followed all over the world. If he's not found guilty, or he's cut free, or he does a short amount of time, I mean, I could only imagine what the whole world would think. This is a disgusting country.
The murders were gruesome and violent and painful, and they served a purpose. They were meant to terrify people into staying in line, right? Compare that to the things that you've heard alleged from the witness stand and testimony under oath from a lot of these young women and some of the young men who were his assistants. Compare the guys in the mob to the stuff you're hearing alleged against Diddy.
If we did that in the mob, we would be killed for it. We would never touch women and children and stuff like that. So that's against our rules, our principles. We would never get away with something like that. There was a guy, Roy DeMeo, and Gas Pipe, who almost became serial killer for no reason, and they were killed. So, I mean, if he was in the Mafia, he would, and we knew what he was doing, he would have been killed. There would be no trial.
It's not the Mafia or other inmates that Diddy has to worry about. Prison takes a big toll on a person, and according to Gene Deal, Diddy doesn't have what it takes to survive behind bars. If things get tough, Diddy might just decide to take the easy way out and harm himself. Diddy has never gotten his hands dirty, and he's only a gangster in his music videos.
Because you told me he was suicidal. That's why I asked.
Everybody's when they first go to prison. Everybody's. If you've never been to prison before, you've never been behind bars, everybody's. Then you get used to it. It becomes your livelihood. You learn how to stay alive. You got a crust of bread in the corner to sleep in. Everything else is a blessing.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you knowing Diddy personally, do you think it's possible he might take his life?
It takes a certain individual to prepare itself to do a lot of years in jail. From the lifestyle that he had, I'm not saying that he can't. I just don't see him able to do time behind bars. Maybe if he be in a camp type situation, that's a possibility. But based on the lifestyle and what he's done and what he's accomplished, if he had to go behind those bars for a lot of years, I think that he may commit suicide. He do an Epstein.
Why do you think he didn't pull a Russell Simmons and leave the country?
They was watching him, bruh. They was watching him. And then I think that he had to turn over his passport. Even if you own your own private jet, they have a system up there whereas that they supposed to check your passport and anything that you need to fly as if you were flying commercial.
Diddy has been making calls to everyone he knows to try and squeeze his way out of jail. Prison records show that Diddy was making almost 200 calls a day to lawyers and other celebrities. The details of who Diddy was calling have also started to come out, and you are not going to believe just what Diddy is willing to do to escape.
With having $75 million at his disposal, isn't that by nature the exact thing that they're worried about? If you have this much money, that you could make this thing, you could probably make people disappear if you really opted to.
See, this is the thing. That'll just make more trouble. Why would he make more trouble now? He done already bought off and paid off everybody he possibly could. Have you looked at the indictment? Like, he called some witnesses up to 54 times.
Yeah, 200 and how many angels? 200 something people he tried to reach out to.
Like, what are you running, a telethon or a telemarketing agency? Telemarketers don't make that many calls in one day. Or sometimes not even in a week, all depending on you was on that. You down for Diddy? Like, how does that conversation start? Hey, what's up? You know, I really feel bad about that last time I bashed you in the face with a Ciroc bottle. Look, we good?
Last week, President Trump confirmed that Diddy's team had reached out to him for a pardon, and he's thinking about it. TMZ confirmed that it's likely that Diddy might be released as early as next week if everything goes according to plan. This is the same pardon that Diddy was asking for even before his sentence. Diddy's lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, said that Diddy told them to talk to Trump and tell him, "I need a pardon. Get me a pardon."
Just 3 days after Diddy was sentenced to over 4 years in prison on prostitution charges, President Donald Trump seems to confirm he's heard from the mogul's legal team. The comments coming Monday from the Oval Office as reporters asked about a pardon for Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving 20 years for child sex trafficking.
I wouldn't consider it or not consider it. I don't know anything about it, but I will speak to the DOJ.
Why would she be a candidate for clemency, sir?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to speak to the DOJ. I'll look at it. I have a lot of people have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
I love Diddy. You know, he's a good friend of mine. He's a good guy. I think he's a good guy. I'm going to stick up for him.
Trump and Diddy's ties go all the way back to the late 90s. Diddy was reportedly a guest at the president's 2005 wedding, and they ran in the same social circles.
One mogul after another. It's mogul time.
It's your boy Diddy.
ET's cameras caught them together at this New York charity event in 2008.
President Trump, as we've just played, said that Sean Combs had reached out to him. Do you know how that happened? Did he write a letter? Did somebody place a call for him? How did that happen?
I know that it did. I'm not going to betray exactly how, but I know that there has been that communication, and I know that obviously Sean would welcome a commutation or a pardon. That's no secret. I saw today with great interest that there was another person who the president commuted his sentence because of
right, a Bitcoin
what he
person who pled guilty.
Yeah, correct, and got sentenced, and President thought it was an overreach. If that was an overreach, and I forget the exact sentence, but I think it pales in comparison to Sean's. And remember, one of the things that is irksome, if you will, about Sean's, and I call him Sean, the president calls him Puff Daddy. I call him Sean as long as I've known him. One of the things that is somewhat irksome is that the government took a big swing at him, and basically tried to get him into take his entire fortune and net worth and the rest of his life, and they lost. And I think that the 50-month sentence was punitive, if you will. I think, if anything, he should have gotten some consideration for the fact that he took the gamble, he risked it, he went to trial, and basically beat all the mandatory life sentences and beat the mandatory divestiture of all of his assets.
The most shocking thing about this pardon is that Diddy was in contact with President Trump directly. One of the lawyers on Diddy's team confirmed that Diddy and President Trump had been in direct contact regarding his pardon. The expected timeline of this pardon is next week. There are even some rumors that everyone in the White House is against this pardon. Trump, on the other hand, said this.
Sean Diddy Combs,
Right.
would you consider pardoning him?
Well, he was essentially, I guess, sort of half innocent.
Yes.
I don't know what they do. He's still in jail or something, but he was celebrating a victory, but he seems, I guess it wasn't as good as a victory. Probably, you know, I was very friendly with him. I got along with him great. And seemed like a nice guy. I didn't know him well. But when I ran for office, he was very hostile.
Diddy could be a free man by the end of this week. We broke a story last night that Donald Trump is seriously considering commuting his sentence. And there has been a lot of fallout with our story.
By the way, commuting his sentence before he's even in a prison.
Right.
He's still at Brooklyn MDC waiting to find out which prison he's going to. But this is something that President Trump is considering. And the fact that he's considering it is causing a bit of an internal war at the White House, because not everybody in the administration thinks this is a good idea.
So we are told this. And this is coming from somebody high up in the White House. We broke that story, incidentally, that right after the sentencing, his legal team, Diddy's legal team, got in touch with somebody who had the president's ear, and that the president was looking at the paperwork.
And the president acknowledged that
like 2 days later.
Yeah, in the Oval Office.
2 days later. Yeah. So we now know that Trump is considering, we're told that he's kind of waffling, he's going back and forth on this, but there are staffers in the White House telling him, don't do it. So we put this story up last night, and the White House immediately came out and said, fake news.
Diddy's lawyer, Mark Garagos, recently revealed that something big is happening behind the scenes, and Diddy's going to be back on the streets soon. He said that he can't talk about the details yet, but Diddy has been working on a plan to be released. Garagos' comments raise more questions than they answer. When someone with Diddy's power, resources, influence, and history is preparing a comeback, who is helping him? Who is protecting him? And what will he do if he gets out?
Yeah, I have no idea about timing. All I know is everything that I read in that article looked accurate.
Well, look, that's probably some relief to Diddy's team, you know. And
I don't know. I think they're moving ahead. I don't think anybody is counting on anything, and
Right.
I think the reporting was accurate.
How did you hear he's faring since the sentencing?
I don't know. I mean, I hopefully we'll see him soon and find out.
I guess lastly, I would ask, what do you think his future looks like?
I have
You
the
know?
utmost confidence in Sean. I think Sean will make a comeback, the likes of which people are not expecting. So I've watched him. I've known him for a long time. I have the utmost confidence in him.
In whatever sphere, I mean, he's done business, the music,
He's iconic
the
in a
fashion.
lot of ways, and I think he'll make a comeback.
Diddy is going to try and use his influence to be transferred to a low-security prison so he can try and get out. It is also easier to buy protection in a low-security prison. The prison you're in determines everything: your safety, your influence, your access, and your control. The location of his sentence could shape the rest of this story. If everything goes according to Diddy's plan, he's going to live like a king, even if he ends up behind bars.
I believe he's a guy with a lot of money. And I'll tell you, this happened to me when I went in there because of the profile I had, because of the way they wrote me up. You know, I had everybody and their brother inmate trying to do a deal with me when I got out, a business deal. They need money. Because of the fact that he's a money guy, I think he's going to have more friends than he will enemies. And in a medium security, normally nobody's looking to shank you. When you get into the higher institutions, when people are doing, a ton of time and there's no way you can benefit them, then you got a little more problem. But in a medium security, I don't think he'll have an issue at all. I really don't. He can be too much of a benefit to inmates that are always looking for something. And he could be a golden ticket for some people, at least in their mind.
So he got off like a fat rat in a cheese factory. But for a dude like Diddy going to jail and spending all that time, I'm not saying it's going to be rough or nothing like that, because his former president of Bad Boy, Kirk Burrows, went to federal jail. You understand? Lil' Kim went to federal jail. So, because the type of dude he is, he'll make it, he'll be all right. And plus they're going to send him to a camp, bruh. He'll be in somebody camp or somebody dormitory, whereas that it'll be real light for him. So, he'll see the streets back again in 24 months. He'll be out within 2 years. It seems like a lot saying 50 months and everything like that, but it's not really a lot, not at all, bro. It's not a lot at all.
Diddy's team has even submitted documents to the judge asking that he be sent to Fort Dix, claiming that it is close to New York and Diddy wants his family to visit. The real reason Diddy chose Fort Dix, however, is because it is a low-security prison and because of the program it offers. Fort Dix offers inmates the option of joining the RDLP program. The RDAP is an intensive 500-hour, 9-month substance abuse treatment program for inmates. Completing it could entitle Combs to as much as a full year's early release from behind bars.
I have you. I only have a little bit of time left. I got to switch gears real quick to Diddy. So he is asked to be sent to a low-security prison out in New Jersey, for where he will serve his, prison term. 4 years, served already 1, so 3, maybe out in 2.5. Do you think he's going to get that request? Do you think he's going to serve it at this low-security prison in New Jersey?
It seems like the logical place for him to go. I mean, you've got, based on all of the factors and everything else that goes into the Bureau of Prisons, when they get the file, so to speak, they get the PSR, which is the pre-sentence report. They have a certain criteria, and a lot of that criteria has to do with geographic location and then the severity of the sentence and the charges. All of that would tend to lean towards the placement at this New Jersey facility. So I would say on a bell curve, 80% shot.
Getting out of prison doesn't mean that Diddy will get away scot-free. Diddy's crimes are so heinous that no matter what happens to him now, things are never going to be the same. He has to register as a sex offender on the official registry and live with that label for the rest of his life. Even after being released or pardoned, that label is never going away.
He still has to register as a sex offender. He still has to do all these different things. Even after he's off of supervised release, he'll still have to register. And if he goes to Miami, because his home's in New York, he's got to check in with the local sheriff and say, hey, sex offender in town, that's what he got to do. I mean, this is not an easy thing for him to have to deal with down the road. But is it life in prison? No, it's not. Is it 20 years in prison? No, it's not. Is it even 10 years? No, it's not. But it's still going to be something he has to deal with. So it's no little thing that he is part of this community of people that have to be supervised, and he gave the government a big foray into controlling his life. And that's what happens when you decide to break the law.
Diddy's lawyers have already filed an appeal asking to get his trial thrown out. This could very well be the thing that Mark Garagos was talking about. If Trump is on Diddy's side, there is a big chance that Diddy wins on appeal. That way, Trump wouldn't even have to pardon Diddy.
We are following some breaking news right now, and Sean Combs is taking the first step to appeal his conviction and prison sentence. His attorney today filed a notice of appeal. Earlier this month, the disgraced music mogul was sentenced to 4 years in prison on prostitution-related charges. His lawyers have argued the conviction should not stand because Combs lacked a financial motive for transporting male escorts. More papers detailing the arguments behind the appeal are expected to be filed soon.
It's pretty clear that Diddy has been getting special treatment from the start. If it was anyone else, they would have gotten at least 10 to 11 years. But for Diddy, the sentence was way below the federal guidelines. Even if the judge had followed the guidelines, Diddy would have still gotten at least 8 years. This doesn't look like a coincidence. This looks like a system bending for someone who knows exactly how to make it bend.
Obviously, he's disappointed, although he really shouldn't be. I think, a 4-year sentence here with already credit for the year or so that he has in, I think he did very well with respect to all of the drama and all of the circumstance around this trial. There was a lot of bad stuff out there, and I'm not saying, I'm not passing judgment on that, but it just looked really bad. And he could have gotten up to 10 years or 11 years. So I think the judge, took everything into consideration. I think his family today made a very good plea for him, and I think he did very well. That's my opinion.
So what in your experience, like your own experience and other, inmates that you've seen go through it and then show back up at the, the cell block, how do they take this? Do they bury their head in the pillow and cry, or do they keep their head held high and just pack up their stuff and wait for their assigned new prison? Like, tell me everything.
Well, everybody's different. I'm sure he went back was somewhat disappointed, so he's probably, dwelling on that. Hey, it could have been differently. Maybe I should have gotten out. Maybe he's a little bit upset, a little bit angry. I get it. All those emotions come into play. But right now, he's got to get ready. He'll spend a couple of weeks there until they designate him to a new facility. And he'll be a lot better off in prison than he is in the federal jail. At least there you can move around and you got some freedom on the yard and things like that.
The chances of Diddy ending up back in prison are way higher than most people realize. The release conditions say that Diddy will be monitored for use. This means that Diddy's parole officer could walk into his house whenever he wants and test Diddy for drugs. If he finds out that Diddy is using, Diddy is going back to prison.
A lot of these conditions sound pretty harsh, but they're pretty standard. Things, as you mentioned, like no contact with victims, also no contact with other criminals, no access to firearms, also unsupervised, or visits, drop-in visits from probation officers at any time, mandatory employment. So many of these are standard. But what I do think is notable is the addition of required treatment programs. And it's not just one, right? It is domestic violence, but also and also mental health. The reason why it's so notable is because we all remember the defense described this as a modern love story. And even though Combs was acquitted of the most egregious charges, it's really a message from the court saying there's really still something that is not right here. There's treatment that is required. There's issues that need to be resolved.
Can you tell us a little bit about his living conditions? Because I know that he's currently in Brooklyn, but he's actually asked to be moved to a federal facility. Why? What would that do to his living conditions?
Okay, so very specifically, he's requesting to be moved to Fort Dix, to a low security prison. So that would very much ameliorate, improve his living conditions from where he is in Brooklyn. So this low security prison is more like a dorm-like setting and also has a specific treatment program that he's requesting to be a part of. And sometimes people who go through this program successfully can get time off at the end.
Well, Angela, we also know that Diddy is going to be required to work 30 hours a week upon his release. Do we know if that's like, he can just do whatever he wants? He's the owner, obviously, of a company, CEO, or is this something that the state or the courts are going to mandate?
So this is interesting. It is pretty standard, and the legal language is work conscientiously at suitable employment. So that doesn't mean that the government can tell him what job to do, but it does mean that the probation officer can veto what he chooses. And the real point here is access and rehabilitation and not a lot of free time, requiring structure. So given that his employment is generally self-employment and a lot of free time, it's not clear here how the probation officer will respond to that, what sort of restrictions they will put. But yeah, the probation officer can say, this is not okay, too much free time on your hands.
At this point, Diddy's future could go one of two ways. Either he walks out of prison with more power than ever, or everything finally catches up to him and the truth becomes impossible to escape. But this is far from over. If you don't want to miss what happens next, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling me what you think is really going on.